Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might just make you sit a little taller in your chair. You didn't come this far by accident. You didn't survive what should have broken you because you were lucky. No, you were covered by grace, covered by favor, covered by angels. That pain that should have crushed you, you walked through it like fire and didn't burn. That wasn't luck. That was purpose, divine purpose. See, when a woman is protected by angels, she doesn't even realize half the battles that never made it to her doorstep. The doors that closed, you thought it was rejection. It was protection. You thought that heartbreak was punishment. It was redirection. You thought walking away from that place, that person, that path was weakness, but it was strength. It was wisdom. It was your angels pulling you out before the damage hit. And you know when you're covered because your intuition is too loud to ignore. You feel it. You see it before it happens. You walk into a room and feel the energy shift. You sense danger before it comes. That's not paranoia. That's power. That's divine insight. That's the whisper of angels saying, a go left. Not right. Wait. Not now. Move. Right now. People don't understand why you move different, why you don't chase clout, why you protect your peace like it's sacred. But you know, deep down, you know, you've been given a spiritual sign. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to feel. And because of that, people come to you to find calm in the storm. They tell you things they've never told anyone. They feel safe around you. Why? Because angels aren't just protecting you. Sometimes they're working through you. You ever look back and realize how far you've come and it scares you a little? Like, how did I make it out of that? How am I still standing? That's how you know. That's when you understand you're not just living, you're being led. You're not just surviving, you're fulfilling something greater. Every step forward is covered. Every detour is divine. Every setback, every night you didn't know how you'd make it, they were all watched over. So don't you dare shrink. Don't question your path. You are not alone. You're a woman divinely protected by angels, and the proof is all around you. You're still here. You're still rising. And baby, you haven't even seen your highest point yet. You survived what was meant to destroy you. And that's not something to brush off lightly. There were nights you didn't think you'd make it. Days when the weight on your shoulders felt like it would crush you. Moments where you question your worth, your strength, your purpose. And yet, here you are, breathing, standing, still fighting, still growing. That's not weakness. That's the deepest form of power. What tried to destroy you came in many forms. It didn't always look like chaos on the outside. Sometimes it was quiet suffering, a slow burn, loneliness disguised as strength, smiles that hid the pain. You went through heartbreaks that should have turned you cold. You faced betrayals that made you question who to trust, even within yourself. But you didn't give up. Maybe you broke for a while, but you always came back stronger, wiser, more grounded. And that strength, nobody can take it from you. Sometimes survival doesn't look heroic. Sometimes it's just getting out of bed when everything inside you is begging you to stay down. Sometimes it's choosing to forgive when all you want is revenge. Sometimes it's deciding to let go of people who once felt like home, because deep down you knew they were destroying parts of you. Survival is messy. It's not always brave in the moment. But when you look back, you'll see how many times you said yes to life when you had every reason to give up. You walked through situations that were meant to break your spirit, but somehow your soul kept rising. You endured the silent battles, the pain nobody else saw. You cried in bathrooms, under blankets, in parked cars, and nobody clapped for you. Nobody knew what it took to keep going. But that's okay, because your strength wasn't about being seen. It was about staying true to yourself, even when you felt like you were unraveling. The people around you may never fully understand what you've been through. They may see your smile now and not realize how hard you fought for it. They may admire your light, not knowing how many nights you sat in the dark. That's what surviving does. It teaches you to hold joy more gently, to see beauty in the smallest things, because you remember what it was like to feel empty. There were times you were drowning in self-doubt, anxiety, and fear. Times when the pain was so deep it felt like it was part of your identity. But entry, you felt forgotten. You questioned your worth, but life kept whispering to you through quiet signs, through moments of stillness, through strangers who said the right words at the right time. Something inside you refused to give up. Even if you didn't call it faith back then, you had it. It was in the way you kept showing up, the way you kept breathing through the ache, You see, the things that tried to destroy you weren't just tests. They were revelations. They revealed your resilience. They stripped away the illusion. They forced you to face yourself in the mirror and meet the version of you who doesn't quit. And now you carry wisdom others can't teach. You carry compassion earned through fire. You understand people's pain because you've been there. You don't judge as quickly because you know what it's like to be on the edge. And maybe you didn't get closure. Maybe you never got the apology you deserve. Maybe you're still healing from wounds that run deep, but you're here. And that means something. You may still flinch when you think about the past, but the fact that you're still standing means you didn't let it define you. That's strength most people never talk about. You've had to learn how to hold space for yourself, to stop looking for validation in people who never had the capacity to see you. You've learned to create your own peace, to build your own stability. And that's no small feat, because for so long you were trying to survive in environments that weren't meant to nurture you. You stayed longer than you should have. You tried harder than you needed to. And still you found the courage to leave, to let go, to rebuild. The survival you've experienced isn't just about overcoming external challenges. It's about battling the inner storms, the negative self-talk, the moments where you felt like a burden, the times when you wanted to shrink, to disappear, to stop existing, but something inside you held on. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was purpose. Maybe it was the whisper of your ancestors telling you to keep going. Whatever it was, it saved you. And now you walk with a quiet confidence. Not because life has been easy, but because you've seen your worst and decided not to live there. You've become your own sanctuary, your own safe place. You've learned to comfort yourself in silence, to cheer for yourself in private. You stopped waiting for someone to rescue you and started becoming your own savior. There's power in surviving what was meant to destroy you. Because survival isn't just about making it through the storm. It's about what the storm made of you. It's about how you emerged softer, not bitter. How you found strength in vulnerability. You chose empathy over cynicism. How you kept loving even after being hurt. That's the kind of resilience that changes everything. You know how to rebuild. You know how to start again. You've proven that you're not defined by your scars. You're defined by your ability to rise with them, to wear them as reminders of everything you've overcome. And now you walk differently. You speak with more truth. You carry yourself with a grace that only comes from knowing pain and choosing joy anyway. Survival has become part of your DNA, not in a way that makes you hard, but in a way that makes you rooted, unshakable. You realize that strength isn't in pretending everything's okay. It's in admitting when it's not and still choosing to show up. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes your story matter. Your intuition is strong and often accurate, and whether or not you've always trusted it, it's been there, guiding you, nudging you, warning you. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. It speaks in silence, in stillness, in the soft flutter of your spirit when something isn't right or when something is deeply aligned. You felt it, that inner voice that says, leave now. Don't trust that. Yes, this is your path. You've ignored it before and paid the price. And you've listened to it and later found out just how right it was. There's something about you that sees through situations before they unfold. You pick up on tension without words. You read energy the way others read text. You've sensed shifts in people's behavior without needing proof. When someone's hiding something, you feel it. When a place feels off, your body tenses. You can't explain it to everyone, and often you don't bother trying because it's not about logic. It's about connection. It's spiritual. It's energetic. It's truth moving through you before your mind can make sense of it. And when you think back, you realize your intuition has been with you your whole life. As a child, you might have felt the mood of a room the moment you walked in. You could tell when someone wasn't genuine, even if they smiled. You knew who to stay away from and who felt safe. But somewhere along the way, people taught you to doubt yourself, to override your gut in favor of what made sense. They told you to be polite, to second guess, to follow the rules. Maybe you did for a while. But the consequences of ignoring your inner knowing, those became your greatest teachers. It's not always easy being someone whose intuition is sharp. You feel things deeper. You process situations long before they unfold. You see what's not being said. And sometimes that makes you feel like you're carrying something heavy that others can't see. You know when something's about to end before it does. You sense when someone is slipping away before they say it. You pick up on dishonesty, even when it's masked in charm. You don't need receipts to know the truth. You feel it in your bones. People might call you sensitive, but they don't realize that sensitivity is your power. It's your warning system. It's the antenna that keeps you spiritually safe. You might walk into a room and immediately feel drained without knowing why. You might meet someone and feel a heaviness you can't explain. That's your intuition. It's telling you what's aligned and what isn't. It's not something you chose, it chose you. And the more you learn to trust it, the more peace you begin to experience. You've probably had moments where something told you to stay, even when everything else said go. Or something told you to go when everyone else said stay. And later you found out the truth that confirmed what you already knew inside. That's the beauty of intuition. It doesn't always offer evidence, but it offers peace when you listen. It offers chaos when you don't. You've known people's intentions before they revealed them. You've protected yourself from damage simply because something inside told you to take a different path. And maybe you didn't understand it then. Maybe you questioned yourself. But life has shown you time and time again, your intuition is not to be dismissed. It's your divine compass. It's your inner guardian. It's your sacred truth. In relationships, your intuition has whispered truths you didn't want to accept. You knew when love wasn't real. You knew when loyalty was breaking. You felt the shift before the words were spoken. And sometimes you stayed longer than you should have, not because you didn't know, but because you weren't ready to honor what you knew. And that's okay. Because even then, your intuition never abandoned you. It stayed patiently waiting for you to catch up to what your spirit already saw. There were opportunities you walked away from that others didn't understand. They looked good on paper. They made sense to everyone else, but something felt off. Something didn't sit right in your soul. And later you found out why. Because your intuition doesn't need credentials. It doesn't need validation. It's wiser than logic. It's older than words. It's spiritual intelligence passed through generations. You may not always be able to explain your decisions, but you know when they're right. Your body relaxes, your heart opens, your mind becomes still. That's the confirmation. That's your yes. That's your alignment. And in the same way, when something's wrong, your body tenses. Your chest tightens, you can't rest. That's your no. That's your protection. That's how you've been kept safe. There's something sacred about the way you move through life now. You don't chase noise. You don't force connections. You don't ignore the red flags. You trust what you feel. You've earned that through trial, through error, through pain. Your intuition has been shaped through experience. It's not just a gift. It's a discipline. You've learned to slow down, to be still, to listen. You've learned that intuition doesn't scream, it whispers. And you have to create quiet enough space to hear it. People often come to you for advice. Not because you have all the answers, but because your perspective is rooted in something deeper. You don't just hear what they're saying, you feel what they're not. You ask the questions that matter, you see through the surface. And it's because you've cultivated a connection with yourself that most people never take the time to build. That connection is your superpower. That's why you can't be manipulated easily. That's why you've avoided disasters that should have crushed you. The world needs more people who trust their intuition. People like you, people who move with intention, people who don't just look, but see, people who don't just listen, but hear. Because intuition isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about leading with truth. It's about honoring your soul. And the more you do that, the more magnetic your life becomes. The right people are drawn to your energy. The wrong ones fall away. And that's not by accident. That's spiritual order. You've stopped apologizing for what you feel. You've stopped doubting your instincts to make others comfortable. You've started making decisions that align with your peace instead of pleasing others. And that shift has changed everything. You don't need 100 opinions when you already have inner clarity. You don't need external validation when your soul already knows. This path of trusting your intuition has required courage. It's meant letting go of logic, letting go of control, and sometimes walking alone. But it's also brought you freedom because now you live with integrity. You live in alignment. And that kind of life, rooted in truth, guided by inner knowing, is the most powerful life of all. You're often pulled away from people or situations suddenly, and at first, it never makes sense. You question it, you resist it, you try to fix it, fight it, or even pray for it to return. But deep down, something shifts in your spirit and you know it's not happening to punish you. It's happening to protect you. One moment things seem solid, steady, familiar. The next moment, everything changes. A friendship falls apart, a door closes, a season ends with no warning. It feels harsh. It feels like rejection. But later, with time and clarity, you begin to understand it wasn't rejection. It was divine redirection. You've probably had moments where someone you cared deeply for started distancing themselves without a clear reason. Maybe a relationship that once felt like home suddenly turned cold. A job you once felt secure and began to feel unbearable. A dream you were chasing no longer gave you peace. These aren't coincidences. They're signs. Signs that the energy has shifted, that the timing has expired, that something bigger is at play, something your spirit senses long before your mind understands. It's hard because you're human. You form attachments. You build emotional bonds. Then you invest your time, your heart, your trust. So when those connections break, it stings, especially when there's no closure, no explanation. But sometimes the absence of closure is the protection. If you had stayed longer, you might have lost more of yourself. If you kept forcing the connection, it might have drained you. If you kept pursuing what felt comfortable, it could have kept you from growing into the person you were meant to become. There's a reason certain people fade without warning. There's a reason certain environments that once felt safe now feel heavy. You're not meant to carry everything into your next chapter. Some people are seasonal. Some lessons are only meant to be temporary. And when their time is up, the universe guides your angels. Whatever you believe in, step in to remove what you're still too attached to release on your own. You've been there before, holding on when everything around you was telling you to let go, and it only hurt more the longer you clung to it. That's the beauty and the ache of spiritual growth. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't ask your permission. It happens in divine timing. It teaches you to trust what doesn't make sense in the moment, because later you'll see why it had to happen exactly that way. You don't always get the luxury of gradual change. Sometimes the shift is abrupt. It leaves you breathless. It forces you to pause, to sit in discomfort, to question everything. And yet, through that sudden separation, you're redirected, realigned, pulled away from what's not meant for you so you can create space for what is. Think about the times you were pulled away and it felt like loss. But looking back, it was actually rescue. You were being pulled away from manipulation disguised as love, from comfort that was actually stagnation, from loyalty to people who weren't loyal to themselves. You were being removed from energy that no longer matched yours. And that distance created healing. That space helped you see clearly. That silence taught you to listen deeper. You might still feel confused when things unravel quickly. You might still feel the sting of disconnection, the ache of unanswered questions, but there's also a part of you, quiet, deep, wise, that understands. That part knows you're not being punished. You're being moved. You're being shaped. And sometimes the only way to level up spiritually is to detach from everything that was keeping you grounded in the wrong place. There's a sacredness in being pulled away, even when it feels like abandonment. Because often, what you're pulled from is rooted in cycles you were meant to outgrow. And if the shift didn't happen suddenly, you would have stayed too long. You would have settled. You would have kept playing small. So the universe, in its mercy, closes the door. Not out of cruelty, but out of protection. Because you won't see the danger until after the escape. Sometimes you're not pulled away from a person because they're evil, but because their season in your story is complete. They served their role. They taught you something. Maybe it was a lesson in boundaries. Maybe it was a reminder of your worth. And once the lesson is learned, their presence is no longer required. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make you wrong. It just means the chapter is closed. The hard part is explaining this to others. They'll ask why you cut ties, why you left that situation, why you stopped showing up for certain people. And all you can say is, it just didn't feel right anymore. That's the language of someone who moves with spirit, not ego. Someone who listens to alignment, not attachment. People might not understand your shifts. They might misread your silence. But they don't need to understand. You're not here to live according to what makes sense to everyone else. You're here to follow the path that brings peace to your soul. Even when that path pulls you away from everything familiar, you're not running. You're being rerouted. You're not afraid of connection. You just know which ones drain you and which ones pour into you. And every time you're pulled away, something in you grows. You gain more clarity, more self-trust, more understanding of what you truly deserve. You begin to realize that sudden exits are often divine interventions. The loss you mourn today might be the liberation you thank the heavens for tomorrow. What looks like confusion now becomes confirmation later. Because protection doesn't always look like a warm embrace. It sometimes looks like a sudden goodbye. You've learned to honor the pull, to stop chasing closure, to trust that if something falls apart without warning, it's because something greater is coming together for you behind the scene. You've stopped begging for people to stay when the energy is clearly asking them to leave. You've stopped holding on to things just because they once felt good. You now understand that peace is better than history. And alignment is better than attachment. There's a power in letting go when your spirit says it's time, a sacred strength in not needing a reason beyond your own peace. And every time you're pulled away from something that no longer serves you, you're being pulled closer to your highest self. You're becoming lighter, clearer, more rooted in truth. And that's something no one can take from you. You bring calm, light, and comfort to others without trying. It's not something you force. It's not something you even realize most of the time. It just happens. Your presence carries a kind of softness that puts people at ease. When you enter a room, something shifts. The tension lessens. The chaos quiets. People breathe a little easier. And you don't even have to speak. It's just who you are. You radiate a kind of peace that people are drawn to because it feels rare, because it feels safe, because it feels like home. You've probably noticed that people open up to you easily. Strangers tell you their life stories. Friends lean on you when they're falling apart. Even those who usually hide their emotions somehow feel comfortable being real with you. It's not because you have all the answers. It's because you don't judge. You listen in a way that makes people feel seen. You give space for their truth to exist without trying to fix it, reshape it, or shrink it. That kind of energy is healing. Even if you never speak a word, you don't chase attention, but you hold it. You don't demand respect, but people offer it. You don't try to impress, but your authenticity is magnetic. There's something about the way you carry yourself with quiet strength and unspoken compassion. You feel things deeply, but you don't let your emotions control the room. Instead, you bring balance. You stay grounded. You hold the space. And people notice even if they can't put it into words. You've likely been the anchor for people during their storms. The one who listened without interrupting. The one who stayed when others left. The one who offered peace just by being there. Your energy is steady, warm, and calming in a world that often feels loud, fast, and uncertain. And because of that, people feel safe with you. They don't have to pretend. They don't have to perform. Around you, they feel like they can finally exhale. You may not always realize the impact you're having. Sometimes you feel invisible, like you're just moving through the world quietly, unnoticed. But the truth is, people remember how you made them feel. They remember the moment your presence helped them feel grounded when everything else was falling apart. They remember how you made space for their pain without needing to rush them through it. They remember how your calm made them feel like maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. This gift you carry, it wasn't created overnight. It was shaped through pain, through loss, through having to be your own calm in the chaos. You didn't choose this road. Life chose it for you. And through all the storms you survived, you learned how to create peace within yourself, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. And now that peace overflows from you. It touches everyone you encounter, whether you mean to or not. There's something deeply spiritual about your energy. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about the way your soul shows up fully, even when your heart feels tired, even when you're carrying your own battles. You still show up with grace. You still offer kindness. You still carry light, even when the world feels heavy. And that light doesn't always shine the loudest, but it's consistent. It's gentle. It's real. You've probably been underestimated because you're quiet, kind, or soft-spoken. But that's because people often mistake softness for weakness. What they don't realize is that it takes incredible strength to remain soft in a world that constantly asks you to harden. It takes strength to stay open-hearted after being hurt, to stay compassionate after being overlooked. You bring light not because you haven't seen darkness, but because you have. and you chose to rise anyway. You may not always feel like you're doing enough because your impact isn't loud. It's not about grand gestures. It's subtle. It's in the way someone feels less alone after being around you. It's in the way you hold space for grief, fear, confusion. It's in the way you offer calm when everything else feels chaotic. That's the kind of impact that can't be measured, but it matters deeply. You're the kind of person people turn to when life gets overwhelmed. Not because you have all the solutions, but because you help them remember their own strength. You reflect back to them a version of themselves they forgot was there, the calm, the grounded, the capable. You remind them that they're not alone, that they're loved, that they don't have to rush to be okay. Your calm energy doesn't mean you're unaffected. You feel deeply. You carry more than people know, but you've learned how to hold your own emotions without letting them control your reactions. You've learned how to sit with discomfort without needing to escape. That's rare. That's powerful. And it's why people trust you even when they can't explain why. You might wonder at times if your light is seen, if your presence is valued, if your role matters. But the truth is, you're someone's peace right now. You're someone's safe space. You're someone's reminder that goodness still exists in the world. You're the reason someone didn't give up. The reason they found the strength to keep going, not because you fixed them, but because you saw them. There are people who walk through life trying to be loud enough to matter, big enough to be remembered. But your impact is in the stillness. It's in the quiet way you love, the quiet way you give, the quiet way you stay. You don't need a spotlight. You don't need applause. You just keep showing up with love, with grace, with light. Your presence is the kind that lingers. Long after the conversation ends, long after the moment has passed, people walk away from you feeling lighter, even if they can't explain it. And that's a gift, a sacred, divine gift. You didn't ask for it. You don't force it. But you honor it every day simply by being you. You see signs, numbers, dreams, or feel sudden peace in chaos. And even if it doesn't always make sense in the moment, deep down, you know it's not random. These are not coincidences. These are confirmation. You'll be walking through a storm, confused, overwhelmed, and then out of nowhere, you see something. A repeated number, a word, a name, a symbol, and it lands with meaning. It touches a part of your soul that logical words can't reach. It's like a quiet whisper reminding you that you're not alone, that you're not lost, that something greater is guiding you even when your path is unclear. It could be the same numbers appearing on a clock, a license plate, a receipt, 11, 222, 444. You pause, not because it's rare, but because something about it feels sacred. You start to notice the patterns. Every time you're close to breaking, the signs show up. Every time you feel like quitting, a message comes. Every time you question whether you're on the right path, something small but powerful happens to calm your spirit. It's not about superstition. It's about alignment. It's about being sensitive enough to feel when the universe is nudging you, when the divine is whispering that you're on sacred ground, even if it doesn't look like it yet. You've learned to pay attention, not with anxious obsession, but with quiet awareness. You know that the external world often reflects the internal journey. So when the same symbols keep appearing, you ask yourself, what is life trying to show me? What truth am I being asked to see? And even if the message isn't clear right away, you trust that understanding will unfold in time, just like it always has before. Dreams become more vivid during certain seasons. You wake up remembering strange detail, faces, places you've never seen but feel strangely familiar. Sometimes the dream feels like a warning. Sometimes it feels like a message wrapped in mystery. Sometimes it feels like a visit from someone you've lost. You don't always share these dreams with others because not everyone understands the language of the soul, but you know what you felt. You know what it stirred in you. You know the way it brought clarity or calm or closure in moments of chaos when everything seems to be falling apart, when the noise of life grows unbearable. You sometimes feel something strange, peace, not because the situation is easy, not because you're unaffected, but because something within you is anchored in something deeper. It's not the peace that comes from circumstances being perfect. It's the peace that defies circumstances. It's the peace that says, even here, even now, I am held. I am guided. I am not forsaken. You may have experienced this during your darkest hours, when things didn't go your way, when prayers seemed unanswered, when life felt like a closed door after closed door. And then in the middle of that pain, something small happened. A line in a song, a sentence in a book, a stranger's unexpected kindness. Something shifted your perspective, even if only for a moment. And in that moment, you remember you're not alone. You never were. This ability to feel, to notice, to receive messages in subtle ways. It's not something you asked for, but it's something you've grown into. Life made you pay attention. The struggles, the heartbreaks, the waiting seasons, they all opened your spiritual eyes. They made you seek more than logic. They made you crave more than facts. They made you search for the truth that lives in silence, in symbols, in the space between words. You've become someone who walks between worlds. You live in the physical, but you listen with your spirit. You make decisions not only with your mind, but with your intuition. You trust your gut when it pulls you away from people, when it warns you before something goes wrong, when it lights up with excitement over something your logic can't explain. You're learning that this inner compass isn't just emotion, it's wisdom, it's guidance, it's divine protection. There are times when you can't explain why you feel something so deeply, why someone's energy feels off even though their words sound right, why a path looks perfect on paper but feels wrong in your soul. And yet, every time you honor that inner knowing, you're led somewhere better. You avoid something that could have broken you. You're aligned with something that heals you. That's the power of being spiritually tuned in. You don't need the approval of others to validate your experiences. You don't need everyone to believe what you believe, because you know what you've lived. You know how many times you've been guided. You know the comfort of unseen arms carrying you through what should have crushed you. You've had too many divine encounters to believe that life is only what we can see with our eyes. You know that sometimes the most important things are invisible. And maybe this awareness hasn't always felt like a gift. Maybe it's made you feel different. Maybe it's made you feel like you don't fit into the noise of the world. But over time, you've come to embrace it. You've come to see it not as a burden, but as a blessing, because it gives your life depth. It gives your pain meaning. It gives your soul language that the world doesn't teach, but your spirit remembers. When you live like this, you begin to trust the timing of your life. You stop forcing things to happen. You stop begging for signs and start noticing the ones that were always there. You stop panicking when things fall apart because you've seen over and over how breakdowns become breakthroughs. You stop fearing the unknown because you know the unknown is where the sacred lives. People may not always understand your sensitivity. They may roll their eyes when you talk about numbers or dreams or energies, but you don't need them to understand. You weren't called to convince anyone. You were called to pay attention, to notice the signs, to follow the pull, to walk by faith even when the path is invisible. And every time you choose that path, you become more aligned with your purpose. You're no longer shaken by every storm because you know the storm doesn't last. You're no longer desperate for answers because you know they come when the time is right. You're no longer afraid of the quiet because you know that's where the divine speaks the loudest. You're learning to walk gently, speak less, listen more, trust deeper. And in doing so, you become a vessel, not just for your own healing, but for others too. Because when you live this way, people are drawn to your peace. They feel safe around your energy. They sense the clarity in your stillness. And even if they don't see the signs you see, they benefit from your ability to move with purpose, to live with faith, to navigate chaos with calm. You become a lighthouse, not because you shout, but because you shine. You guide not with maps, but with presence. And in a world that's constantly searching for something real, you become the reminder that the real is already here. It's just waiting for us to notice. Everything you've lived, everything you felt, everything you quietly carried, it's all been shaping something powerful within you. You've survived what was meant to break you. You've trusted your intuition when no one else understood. You've brought peace without trying, and you've seen signs when others saw only silence. You've been a light in darkness, a calm in chaos, a safe space for souls around you. These aren't just traits. They are divine marks. You are protected, guided, and deeply connected to something greater. You don't have to chase validation or explain your journey to anyone. Your life is proof. Your spirit is the message, and your presence is the sign someone else has been praying for. Keep walking, keep trusting. You are exactly who you were meant to become.